Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert,
and Ryan.
and today we shall be discussing the third episode of Loki, Lamentus.
Lamentus indeed. First impressions?
First impression, what was your first impression?
So let's just say I was watching the episode just sort of wondering like, okay, how are they after I figured out what the episode was gonna be, because you definitely think it's going one way, and then you think it's maybe going a different way, and then when you realize what the episode actually is, you're just like, oh, okay. I wonder how they're gonna get off this planet. And I kept thinking, how are they gonna figure it out by the end of this episode? How are they gonna get off? And when it gets to their last attempts at figuring it out, I'm just like, how are they getting off this planet by the end of this episode? And the question answered, they aren't. And honestly, I thought that was just like a ballsy little cliffhanger for them to leave us on, because I have no idea what the plan is for next episode. I'm completely in the dark, and I actually kind of like that. I imagine you have a different take than I do.
I do. Hot take. I did not particularly like this episode. Though I do have some interesting theories based on this episode. But yeah, I just I felt a little bit like there was just some things here that I just didn't really like that much. Like there are some cool things about this episode. But yeah, just overall, like my general impression of this one was like meh, very meh. And I feel like I think you might have mentioned, not on the podcast here, that like a lot of people like this episode. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is, I don't know if there's like any consensus of people that also didn't like it. And I'll bring up some of the reasons I didn't, but yeah, I have not liked this one as much. I just didn't like it that much.
All right, well, let's just get into recapping it then.
Let's just get right into it.
Yeah, so this episode begins with basically where we left off at the end of the previous episode, with the variant going through the teleport.
It does not actually start there.
Oh, it doesn't.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it was almost easy to forget, but it actually starts off with a thing that I did kind of like. Is it was this like throwing us for a loop, like not understanding what was going on for a second here. Is that we start with what appears to be the hunter. I can't remember which designation it is, but the hunter that
got kidnapped,
Lady Loki captured, and Lady Loki sitting at like some kind of like freaking beach hut, bar or something, and they're like having drinks, and it looks like they're palling around, like they know each other, like they're friends.
Here's the thing: did you recognize that as a hunter when they were talking? I didn't recognize that as the hunter girl. I was like, is this like some flashback to establish who the variant was? But no, it is. Yeah, I didn't recognize it as the hunter until it popped out.
Yeah, I did immediately recognize the hunter, and it did make me basically be like, this is probably some kind of fabrication. This is an illusion. And when it comes about where she starts doing, asking her the questions and kind of in this strange interrogation, I was like, okay, I was right. I didn't know when it was happening though. I wasn't sure, exactly how, what it was. But then we get the reveal that this facade of her speaking to her in this bar, which changes and which she clearly is asking, like probing these questions about the timekeepers, ends up being that it is just an illusion. It's literally right before the TVA, including Loki and Mobius, show up at the Rock's Mart to apprehend her. We see it on the them arriving on the security cameras. Then after that, we then transition into Lady Loki, and with Loki and falling just behind, coming back to the TVA, Lady Loki takes out a bunch of Minutemen guards on the way to the timekeepers' domain, their office, whatever.
Well, on the way to the golden elevator that leads to where they are supposedly.
Yeah, golden elevator. Did it say that somewhere or?
Well, that's where she was that's where Loki caught up to her, was at the elevator.
Okay. I didn't know if like golden elevator was a designation or if you're just saying like a golden elevator.
It was the golden elevator that the hunter said that they were behind.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so they get there. Loki and Lady Loki start fighting, and during their fight are engaged by Ravonna Renslayer.
Renslayer, yeah.
Is it Ravonna?
Judge Renslayer.
Yeah, Renslayer. And as she's about to approach them and battle them, Loki steals a temp pad, opens up a doorway, and drops them into some unknown place, which we quickly learn from Lady Loki is Lamentis, right before
Lamentis 1.
Yeah, a planet, wide destruction. Like there's a moon or another planet about to.
So Lamentis 1 is a moon that is being crushed by the planet that it is orbiting.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they, she's like, "You're an idiot," and the temp pad doesn't have enough energy to get us out of here now. And they have kind of like an altercation where Loki even tries to ensorcel him, but Loki's mind is too powerful, so he cannot be ensorcelled. And basically, they're like, "Oh my god, we're gonna die! Like it's doomed now." But Lady Loki says they need a powerful enough power source to recharge the temp pad, and they can escape. And she does know that there is this an ark, this basically a giant ship that's.
Well, they don't know that.
Oh, they don't know it?
No, they so they sort of essentially come to an agreement because Loki has hidden the temp pad away magically, yeah, so that she can't access it, but he doesn't know how to recharge it. He needs the help of the variant, and the variant needs the temp pad that Loki has. So they come to an agreement to travel together. And as they're going along, they like come across like a town that's been abandoned, and then they come across a like an individual like abandoned house. And at this house, they
find that it's not abandoned.
Yes, and there's a woman inside, and she basically gives them the information that there is an arc that everybody's headed to, and that if they wanted to get to the arc, they would need to get on the train at the train station nearby.
Yeah. And so one thing up to this point, and that interaction with the woman and a few different things up to this point, and throughout the rest of the episode, we're going to see these distinctions between Lady Loki, who basically says, like, "Don't call me Loki." She says, "Call me Sylvie." So Sylvie and Loki, we get a distinction between, if they are both supposed to be Lokis from two different timelines, we just continue to see these differences in them. How our Loki is more about charisma, guile, wit, and not really he can fight, but he's not really a fighter.
Yeah.
In fact, he does, though they're about evenly matched. It is kind of, I think Sylvie does somewhat get an upper hand on him during their, scuffles.
Yeah.
And she is more aggressive and direct, even though which, I find it interesting that, she has like an enchanting power, but like her actual way of doing things is very like just aggressive and direct. She's like, "I'm just gonna like take these people over and like force them to do what I want."
But we kind of saw that in the second episode in particular, where we first see the enchanting going on. Sylvie was enchanting that hunter to do fighting, and enchanted that big guy in the Rocksmart or Roxcart, whatever it was called, the big guy that basically beat up Loki pretty handedly when they were there. Like it was already established that Sylvie, even through the enchanting, is a very physical fighter and can pack a punch.
Yeah. So, but I just find it like that sort of skill set. You'd think she would be, I think when you think of someone that has like the power to control other people, that you imagine that their way of going about things is to be very hands off, is to like control others and get others to do what they want, as opposed to being like an aggressive, force in and of themselves. And it's not to say that she can't obviously be a direct and aggressive person, but I always imagine like Loki's powers are illusions and like
they're both manipulations in a way, but it's interesting. You would think of the enchanting as more hands off when both of them are manipulating, whereas Loki is doing sort of like techniques to elicit a manipulation in others, Sylvie is actively like entering the minds of people in order to manipulate them, which seems like a more direct and hands-on version of what Loki does.
Yeah. I could see how that sort of direct entering of another person's mind could be very much like, because she takes that kind of, and basically just through a failure of the illusion he's trying to do, a deception, he, not understanding what the husband was like, she realizes that he's faking it and also fails. So that they're both of their methods, don't end up working, but yeah. And we see that basically they just asked her for help. She ends up giving them the information for free and not really, caring.
Yeah.
So it's funny to see that, like, we see the total difference in their styles, but how sometimes them, they're gods of mischief, and sometimes they're just making it harder on themselves almost by not just going about things in a more, normal or regular way.
Yeah. And we actually, in a way, I feel like we see more of that throughout the episode, but they take the lady's
way of doing things. It could translate into how she deals with things even when she's not using that enchanting. So that does make sense. I just, my original thought for like how an enchanter person might be was maybe subverted a little bit, and that's fine though. But we see this distinction here. That was my point, is when we see that woman, she literally goes and kicks the door down for this woman. The woman blasts her away.
Yeah.
Loki tries to trick her by making illusion of he sees a photo inside the hut and tries to pretend to be her husband.
Advice and head over to the train to see if they can get onto the ark. And so Sylvie, so they come up to the train, and there's a long line of people like trying to get in, and they're talking about we need a plan to get on there. And Sylvie is gonna try to use her methods, but then Loki says, "No, we're doing it my way," and he uses his magic to give himself the uniform of one of the officers working there. And he brings her up onto the train and is about to enter the train platform when another guard stops them and says, "Where are the tickets? You can't just bring her on without a ticket." And he even starts to call his manager over. And at this point, Sylvie takes over, enchants the guy, and they're able to get on. No harm, no foul, with them basically both sort of like annoyed at the other one because Loki's method was about to fail without Sylvie, but also Loki's method got them through there. And it's funny, like them working together obviously made the most sense the whole way through, but they're just like wanting to, like, I don't know.
They're a little bit at odds, they're like, I think some way there's a little bit of arrogance or pride in that they think that, but clearly
they want to be the superior Loki. Mm-hmm. So much so that we get a lot of Loki referring, before we get the name Sylvie, we get Loki consistently referring to this Loki variant as the variant, you variant, because he is Loki and this new person cannot be Loki. And she agrees. She is Sylvie.
Yeah. But yeah, it is. Again, we get not only a distinction of the differences between them, but we also see how they can work together as well. So this is one of the things I'm enjoying about the episode, really, is that just seeing how they play out, getting, multiple instances where we're understanding the distinctness of these two Lokis.
I think we get the best part of that when we're on this train that they've boarded, because we just start getting the two having a conversation, and we get them talking about their moms and how Sylvie didn't really know her mom, but Loki obviously had a close connection with his mom, and that's where he learned magic from. Whereas Sylvie learned her magic through self-taught methods because she never had a mom. And so that also maybe explains why their magics differ.
Yeah, and potentially why she's more aggressive. Or, we don't know more about her history necessarily, but maybe that she had to teach herself and be more to survive or something. She had to be more aggressive. She had to really take it. And Loki could get by. He had a mother to teach him and help him, and he's gotten by. She even refers to him as being princely, right? Almost as if she wasn't.
Yeah.
Which makes me believe like maybe she didn't live a very pampered life. She didn't have a mother. But again, we don't know what the full difference is here, because she's not like she said, well, I didn't have Freya to be my mother, but Odin did still adopt me. Or did she not get adopted at all?
See, and here's another question that we can sort of, that doesn't get answered by this episode at all, but the question of why is she hunting on the timekeepers, or why does she want to do what she wants to do with the timekeepers? Because earlier in the episode we actually did not quite mention this, but we get her saying to Loki, our Loki, that this thing she's been working on has been a plan that was years in the making. And then it makes you wonder, like, did she lose her mom from some reason associated with her variant status, or did she lose her mom to this TVA? How long has she been engaged with the TVA that she still exists? Because I wonder what level of variance has to occur for a Loki to become a Sylvie, or is the Sylvie entirely a characteristic that evolved from her being a variant for so long of her life? Maybe she's been mostly a variant aware of the TVA most of her life.
I have a thought, on that. I mean, we can get to it later, or I could just mention it now. But I think that she she has existed since there was a multiversal war, and I think she was part of the multiverses that were conquered, and she's just trying to basically release all the multiverses again. The fact that basically the multiverses would exist and her multiverse would continue to exist, right? Because again, if we, I don't know about time here, but across the timeline, right, there should be multiverses that exist across the entire timeline, all the way back to the beginning and to the end.
Yeah.
Because time is a stream, but it all exists, for a person that's, fourth dimensional, you can see that time exists as not as a line, but as a constant occurrence. And basically if she can kill the timekeepers or reset everything and bring the multiverse back, her multiverse will exist again and she can go back to it. That is just a thought, a theory I have. That's her purpose, is kill the timekeepers so they don't keep clipping the main timeline, and so that hers can exist and she can go back to it. So that the only reason that variants exist is because they get rid of the multiverses where they're from. Yeah. Otherwise they could just exist. All these multiverses would just continue to exist.
They wouldn't be variants. They would just be their own independent universe.
Yeah. They're basically going and deleting universes to make sure that theirs is the only one, because it's a threat to this main one. Even though, technically, other than that, there is an entity which moves between multiverses, which we know that, MCU wise there are. Otherwise, though, those should all just be basically independent branches that should all just exist.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we can talk a little more about that if there's any more to say at the end. But we get them on the train and they're discussing and having, these talks, and we learn a lot more about both of them and get some more depth on each of them.
We see that while Sylvie denies a drink, Loki offers to drink both his and hers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Later we do get a phrase where she says, he says, "I'm hedonistic. What did you expect?" And she says, "I'm hedonistic even more so than you, but I won't sacrifice the mission."
Which
again is just lends to her variant nature, that we can assume that being a Loki, it's in her nature to be hedonistic and mischievous and stuff like that. But she has honed over time this discipline to suppress her natural urges, maybe.
Yeah.
Because this thing is so important to her. And Loki has just gotten through his life, even when he's had plans, still, I guess, acting as he would.
He gets overconfident, and he lets himself slip, and that's how he loses.
Yeah, hubris, which is always,
it's
a downfall of many, great villains. But eventually she's so tired, she falls asleep. And when she wakes up, Loki has, started singing in the bar and, has everybody else singing, and he's clearly drunk. And, when she approaches him. Oh, and I also really did like the
Asgardian song.
Yeah, the Asgardian song. but especially like just that moment where it all like
slows down
and he's singing. It just, for some reason, it just hit this like note kind of like, like a sorrowful note. I don't know what the song's about. Like it sounded like it was in Gaelic or something.
Yeah.
But
it was in Asgardian.
Yeah, it said in the thing it was an Asgardian. I'm like, okay, so it's a made up language. I don't know what it means at all. But just the way it was sung in that moment, like kind of just hits this chord of like it's it's sorrowful or like reminiscent. Just it made me feel like it was, I don't know, this remembrance of something sad kind of.
I think that kind of music can carry that quality in general, and yeah, I think it's actually was like a very uh well done musical number in the middle of the MCU show.
Yeah. But so she's like, "What are you doing? You're causing too much attention, and like some people were looking at you." And he's like, "Chill out, not a big deal, yada yada." Until guards show up and say, "Hey, sir, we need to see your ticket," and that starts a fight.
Yeah,
and they basically sit there, they battle, they're fighting these guards, and they eventually, through this battle, Loki gets tossed off the train.
Yep, and Sylvie realizes that Loki has the time pad, and jumps off to follow him because she can't go anywhere without that, and so they're both off the train. And when Sylvie gets to Loki, she demands the to get the time pad back, and it got smashed when he fell off the train.
Yep. So they basically, at first she's, pissed at him, but then they just resign that they have to go to the Ark, and they're just going to take the Ark over and use it to get off the planet. And that's how they'll do it. So they continue, they get to the city where the Ark is. And when they arrive there is like a small, there's a mob war going on of people that are trying to get on board the Ark before it leaves.
Guards basically beating them down, which it's like one of those moments where it's like, guys, the world is ending. Why are you like so passionate about your job of guarding the rich folks from getting attacked by poor people when you're about to die too?
Yeah, I don't know. If we have to assume some kind of thing that maybe they know that if they just do their job, that they also have a way off.
Or maybe they have family off the planet that's going to get paid for their service.
Yeah, exactly. Like they think that they're doing what they need to do and they'll be taken care of. Like if you continue to guard the thing, you have a spot on the Ark, right? But you need to keep all, if these people get on the Ark, there won't be enough room for you, kind of.
Even as the Ark is going off. But yeah, sure.
Well, I don't think it ever started launching, though. I think it was getting ready to launch, right?
Yeah, but like it was getting ready to launch. Yeah. And if you're this far away, you weren't getting on.
Yeah.
To the point that there basically has like a countdown going on of the things about to launch. And we get Loki and Sylvie in this. Honestly, I think this is a really interesting fight sequence because it has like this tenseness to it because, like I said, watching the episode, like, how are they getting off right here? How are they getting onto this Ark? What's going to happen? And through this fight sequence, they're like just trying to make their way to the Ark in time to not only get on it, but to save it because they know that it's destined to not make it off. And they're trying their best, but eventually they see it's like a piece of like debris or something that just like comes and rips the Ark apart.
Yeah, it's just a huge, like basically, I don't know if it's a meteorite, right? Meteors are the ones that enter the atmosphere. Comets are the ones that don't.
I don't know the specific term of what.
Yeah, a meteor. Yeah. I believe it's a meteor. If they come onto Earth, it's a meteor.
But it's on the moon.
Oh, well. Whatever, we're going to use meteor because that's the closest thing we can say, assuming this is a planet with more rocks coming into it. And yeah, it just rips the Ark apart. And after this whole exchange where they're running, trying to make their way through and battling, and the Ark is just destroyed and everybody freezes.
Yeah.
Because everybody realizes in that moment that none of them are going anywhere now.
And we're left ending on this still image, which I find to be a fairly striking frame of Loki just like sort of centered in the frame, and he's just like sort of like looks like lost because he's lost, and we get like Sylvie behind him like moving around like she still has something she's thinking about, some sort of plan. And I mean, look, we can pretty much start the discussion now because that's the end of episode.
Yeah.
How do you see the end of that episode and you're not just like, I don't know what they're going to do?
Okay. So here is, I have like a theory but I want to bring up some, like things about the episode, because I said I didn't really like it, but I want to bring up some things about the episode that I kind of do like, and some things like specifically that I didn't like, but then also have like a theory that kind of comes back and ties it up. So things I like about the episode, a lot of really interesting like cinematic scenes, right? Like the whole episode is in this like purple world, and especially that end fighting scene was, it's shot in that continuous shot sort of camera way,
like it's almost like a John Wick fight scene.
Yeah,
a lot less violent, but honestly, I kind of like the action in this episode as a whole. I feel like I like this action more than a lot of the action in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, so I would not necessarily agree with that point, basically. So I liked a lot of the scene and a lot of the cinematography and a lot of the ways that things were shot, but I didn't like that there was so much fighting in this episode, and some of it felt just like pointless, almost like where I was like, it's kind of cool to see action and everything, but I honestly would have rather have saw more of them just talking and learning more about them. I would have gotten more of that, because
I agree.
Some of the fights almost were just like fruitless, and especially that ending scene. That ending scene was I don't know how many minutes it lasts, but it seemed to me almost like completely pointless.
I think it's like 2 minutes.
Yeah, maybe it's 2 minutes, but it felt very like, why was this the ending here? I felt like we could have gotten more exposition, narrative, something more substantial than them just running around in like a collapsing. I get that it like paints this picture like, oh, the city's like falling apart and there's all this chaos going around, but I just don't see the real purpose of it, and I didn't necessarily like that. So
I think for me, I think that scene worked because it was building tension in me, because I didn't know what was about to happen. I didn't know. I didn't believe that they were going to end this episode with no resolution. I thought that I was going to get out of this episode knowing how they're getting off of this moon, and I didn't. And that surprised me. And I thought it was kind of a ballsy move in a way to just like end on such a dour note. Because like they already have us like hooked to come back next week. Like they don't need to dingle like a cliffhanger in that way. But they did, and it's almost like you not liking it doesn't surprise me, because it is almost like a fuck you kind of ending of like, yeah, like you want to know what happens next? Come back next week, bitch.
Yeah. So I have a theory, and it's a pretty huge theory, and I really think I'm right about this. This is not like, I don't even think this is far-fetched. I believe that everything in this episode is an illusion in Loki's mind.
You know what? I did have that thought watching the episode.
And I think there are plenty of clues that go back and tell us this. One, like just start the whole thing. She literally tries to take over his mind. Like we see her do it, and then he says, "I'm too powerful," right? My first thing is like, as soon as that happened, I immediately thought like, no, you're not. Like, this is exactly what I would make an illusion start with, because you're the kind of person that would think you're too powerful. And so to let you think that you made it out of the illusion, the first part of the illusion would be that you didn't get, ensorcelled. And she's a Loki. She knows that. So why wouldn't she? I mean, that is a perfect way to start an illusion that you're going through, because he has the temp pad hidden. That is the whole purpose. She is trying to get him to reveal the temp pad.
But he does reveal where the temp pad was.
No, he doesn't. Loki shows a broken temp pad, but I believe that that's just an illusion. Even in now,
I also thought that, yeah,
exactly. I think we get all the clues that say that this is illusion. One, the whole this episode started with a scene that we didn't need to see that. We could have seen that a whole different time. We could have seen it in the last episode to describe what happened to that hunter, right? But we see it here. We see a description of how she is creates this illusory world where she's trying to pierce through and get the information she needs, right? At the beginning of an episode where right in the beginning, she tries to ensorcel him and it doesn't work. And she's really trying to get this temp pad the whole time. Now, through the episode, we continue to see, there's just some back and forth. And
what about when she falls asleep?
So the explanation of that is when they're walking up to the city, and we kind of glossed over this in our recap, they're having a conversation, and she's describing what it's like to try and take over people's minds. She says most people just succumb immediately, but people with stronger minds, I have to basically like sit there and I have to go through with them. And when they're there in the mind with me, sometimes she said, sometimes they're there as well, right? So it's their mind. And if you become aware, if you're a strong mind and you're aware, you can affect it as well, is what I'm assuming, right? Like she's not in total control of a strong mind. She has to break a strong mind down or like make it discover, and she can control certain aspects of it, but she's not in full control. So I believe that explains basically a lot of things here, is that because she's not in full control, Loki has some control of the dream. And he's preventing her from just getting, she has to like basically guide him along this ruse that it's going to be like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like she's going to put him in a position of like, we must do something with the temp pad now. Or that was like, if the temp pad is broken, like he's trying to say, oh, temp pad's broken, sorry, that she needs him to reveal the real temp pad.
Yeah.
She literally was like, we're going to make the end of this a real temp pad. Another thing that lends to this, right, is that them fighting with guards, okay? We've seen Loki get in a couple fights so far, right? We've seen him fight some Minutemen. We saw him in fights in the Rocksmart, with the people that were taken over by Lady Loki. And we see him fight guards in this episode. Mm-hmm. I might be missing something, but I'm pretty sure those are all the times that we see him fight. Now, I completely do not believe that an Asgardian, who we know is maybe not as powerful as Thor, but like all Asgardians are more powerful than any regular human, regular person. Like that's, just like a standard thing. Like they are they're basically an alien race that is just greater than, more powerful in multiple ways.
He's not an Asgardian.
He is a frost giant, which we know are equivalent, even though he's like a smaller frost giant, are of equivalent power to Asgardians or greater. Their physical prowess is equal to or greater than some Asgardians. So we can give him basically he's stronger than most, regular races. Now, he fights the Minutemen. I will assume that the TVA somehow have some enhanced people, that they can be enhanced enough to, fight with him and it be some kind of real battle. I can give some credit to that Lady Loki is putting her consciousness and being an equivalent being that also has a similar amount of power, can empower the people that he has to fight. I will give those ones. But there's no way I'm going to believe that regular guardsmen, just like these are regular guys, they're supposed to be some kind of humanish equivalent, even if they're alien-like.
That's the thing right there. They are aliens. They're living on a moon. You can't just call these humans. So
we can say that, but in other instances of like Guardians of the Galaxy, when you see human-esque people, they have relatively human-like strengths. And, again, we can say like, oh, well, maybe they're more powerful. I'm like, unless they seem like they're supposed to be more powerful, they're all basically as strong as a human's supposed to be. And that's what we see. That's what it's sort of shown to us, is that like the regular-ish people are all regular-ish strength, even to a regular human, unless they're a race of people that are greater and stronger. If they're the Kree are supposed to be bigger and stronger. Like the Kree people. Is it the Kree that I'm thinking of? The blue ones, the ones that are blue, but they're not all blue.
The Kree, isn't that the what Captain Marvel is?
Captain Marvel is not a Kree, but she joins the Kree Empire,
but that's what she has Kree stuff in her. Yeah,
she did have Kree blood put into her, but she also has the power of the
Infinity Stone.
The Infinity Stone experiment thing that exploded and gave her the Marvel, powers. But I do not believe that these guards should be as powerful as Loki. Now, what would make sense though is that she needs to, Loki's not going to doubt that he gets in a fight and they're battling, but she wants to cause this strife and cause him to battle and maybe, try and elicit some reason to reveal the temp pad. And that's why they're having this whole battle at the end. He's battling all these different people and that he's not just overpowering them. That is one reason that explains to me why the guards are his equivalent strength to Loki. But
he's also drunk.
He is also, he's drunk on the train, but he's not drunk when he gets to the city.
How long do you think that they were on this planet that's erupting?
Well, we know that the limit of when the ark's supposed to leave is like 12 hours from they get it's going to leave in 12 hours sometime prior in the city. They get knocked off the train. They have to exercise and time are both great ways to get sobered. And he's an Asgardian, so I'm also going to give him the credit that the drink is going to run through him relatively quickly.
All right, then he's been basically running to the ark for hours.
I mean, Yeah.
after not sleeping for the time that Sylvie got to sleep and being drunk.
Again, though, you can say being tired. So if a bodybuilder is tired, his strength is not like if and he punches someone, he might not be giving it full power, but like those muscles are still going to hit just as hard.
Yeah, but Loki's not just all muscle. It's about like landing punches. It's about reflexes, your dexterity, all that gets dulled when you're tired.
I still think that no matter what, his ability, his physical prowess should be above any regular guard.
I don't think of this as any sort of, this just doesn't lend evidence to the theory, in my opinion, because it's fights work out how fights work out unless it's like something glaringly stupid. To me, this makes sense. He already let a guard toss him out a window. He's
now like that's a reason enough to say he's drunk and he allowed that guy to get a hand on him and throw him out. I'll give you that, but like him not like being able to overpower guards more easily, it makes less sense to me. Now here's the thing: is that this could lend to the theory, but this is if it's not backed by my theory, then it actually does just disappoint me that they essentially have. I feel like they lowered Loki's power. Then if like there's supposed to be an instance where he is not as powerful, like he has to have a legitimate regular battle with any just normal guardsman, like of a normal average human like strength. Then they've underpowered him, because I think he's established in other movies that he is just base level more powerful than a regular person.
The first like few minutes of this show, he gets immediately taken out because he gets immediately overpowered by the TVA.
Which I'll give credit that the TVA are not supposed to be a normal human level. Okay, we get a reveal that like, oh, the TVA are not.
They're just variant people.
They're variant people.
When has Loki had hand-on-hand combat that makes you think he is a strong individual?
In like the first Avengers movie.
Hand-on-hand combat?
He demonstrates that he is like more like he's powerful enough to like pick up people and stuff. And Thor,
when he has the power of an Infinity Stone at his disposal,
he's not generating extra power through that Infinity Stone. I believe in the original Thor as well. Like he demonstrates he just has like greater physical power. Like Asgardians have greater physical power.
But still, like I just think that this is kind of a nothing argument to me.
I mean, I don't know that I think that's dismissive, but
I apologize that it's. I apologize for the way I said that. It's just not something. It just doesn't. There's just something about the argument that just doesn't connect with me.
I mean, that's fine. That's just a criticism I have of the show at this point. If it's not backed by my theory, then then it's something about this episode where I'm just like, why is Loki not more powerful? He is an Asgardian. He should just be a baseline more powerful. The fact that he just gets like, even to say if the TVA really are just humans. And if Lady Loki was not empowering those people that were fighting him, that means that he's just getting beat up by regular people, which honestly does not make it. I think it's not doing Loki enough justice. He is a frost giant. Like, okay, he's not Asgardian. He's a frost giant. Even if he's the puniest of frost giants, he should be more powerful than any human. He shouldn't be these bad, like, unless he's fighting people that are slightly enhanced. He should be actually battling. He shouldn't really have to battle them that hard. So that's one criticism I just have in general, is that they've underpowered Loki a little bit to make it serve the narrative better. Really, they just want to have him have battles and not be overpowered. But I think he should have more power. I think he should be more powerful. Now, okay, we can just all toss that aside.
Yeah,
I understand that's not huge to the theory, but that was just one thing that could lend to the theory. Two more huge things, right? Or one huge thing and one like other minor thing. We see Loki exhibit like at least one power that we've never seen him do before, which is like this strange green energy blast, right? That doesn't mean that he never had that power, and we just never saw it. But it is something totally like never done before, other than here on Lamentus. He's never exhibited it in any depiction. And why wouldn't he have shown that before? Is a question I have, right? Then this is huge. This is pretty much to me like it. There is no other answer other than this: a building is literally falling on top of them. And Loki says something like, let me handle this, turns around, just looks at it. No green energy, no like invisible, magical, anything, and just makes the building go away. That, in that moment, I was like, oh, this has got to be an illusion that he has a partial control over, but he's not aware it's an illusion. Like, I fully believe that in that moment, he was just like, I'm going to make this go away. Now, I have heard some theories online like that he stole the time stone and he has the time stone, but unless he was hiding that ability right there. He has the time stone and he's not using it in any other fundamental way right now to do things. I don't think it's the time stone thing. I've heard people say this theory, and I do not necessarily agree with that.
But he could have easily gotten his hands on an Infinity Stone, huh?
Yeah, no, because he literally was holding them. He picked up a time stone in that box,
and they would start working the minute that he got. I actually like that.
Yeah, that it's a decent theory, but I don't think that's what the case is, because there's nothing in the show that's ever really gave us any reason to think that. It's not. Again, I'm not saying it isn't true. And if it comes out next episode, I'll be like, okay, cool. Yeah. So people got that right. I mean, it's very, very possible that the trickster Loki, he said he took the Tesseract and kept trying to do stuff with it. I never saw him give the Tesseract back. At least I don't remember. I don't remember him being like, here, Mobius, you can take that Tesseract back. So maybe he's got it, maybe something like that. But we don't see blue energy. We don't see green energy. We don't see anything come to the time stone. We just see him turn around and literally look at the building and like open up his arms and make it go back.
Here's the real question then.
And if he's got a time stone, why doesn't he just reverse all this and get on the arc?
Here's the real question then. Why do you think that Sylvie was the enchanter and not Loki?
What do you mean?
All this evidence is pointing towards Loki being more in control of the dream than Sylvie.
I don't know that he's necessarily more in control, but I think he has control in places of this dream.
But look, Sylvie just needed the tempad from Loki. I think Loki wants to know what Sylvie's has going on. Sylvie has no interest in knowing what Loki's backstory is, but all of this like stuff between the two of them is giving Loki more information about Sylvie.
I think it's part of like basically the long con. Like if you're a con man, you like lead people into believing you more and more by getting them to trust you over time. And then you like, because she wants them to not only trust him, like, I mean, again, they're not like, it's not like they're bonding a ton here, but get him to a place where he's comfortable or thinks that he actually can reveal the tempad. And I think what's going to happen is he's going to pull out the tempad and be like, all right, let's charge it. Okay, let's go. And then she's going to have her, we're going to see her have her thing and take it off. And he's going to have pulled the tempad out in real life while he's still under the enchantment. I think that's what's going to end up happening.
Yeah, but why can't it be that Loki, when she tried to enchant him, actually got the enchant onto her with, let's say he did keep some Infinity Stones and he has, let's say, the Mind Stone, which makes it very easy for him to start an enchantment. Like, I'm just saying, like, I could just as easily see this all being Sylvie's enchantment as I could Loki, especially with how Loki seems to have more control in the dream sphere. Even like he wanted Sylvie to fall asleep and Sylvie fell asleep. And in that time, he was able to set a new scenario.
I think that's very entirely possible. I think that she's been taxed. I think that, because she said, I'm tired, that she's been taxed, that she is, and her giving up. She did not, maybe up to this point, Loki's been a strong mind, and she did not think that he was going to be able to change so much or do too much while she was asleep or something like that. But to say, if Loki's controlling it, I don't think there's anything in the narrative that really supports that. Again, I think there's evidence that shows that Sylvie's the one that did it.
Here's the last, or not the last, but here's another thing to consider. Okay, so based on what Sylvie has told us, the enchantments have to inhabit somewhere in the minds of the person being enchanted. We have to be visiting places that the enchanter has been. That was established at the beginning of the episode. Loki's never been to Lamentis before, so he should have none of these memories. When we arrive on Lamentis, they can't even like be outside for that long because so many things are crashing around them. So Loki only has that limited knowledge of this place, whereas Sylvie seems to be aware enough of this place to have been there before. So
I think that
Sylvie has memories of this place.
That is entirely reasonable, right there. And I think, like based on that, it's very possible that maybe Loki has turned it on her, and it is more about, I think that lends some possibility. I just don't know that that's I just don't know. I think
it doesn't feel like the direction the show would take.
Yeah.
But I'm just presenting that as a possibility, because the more details you gave me about the dreamscape, the more I felt like, this makes more sense for Loki being in control than Sylvie, because Loki seems to have a little bit more power in certain ways and seems to be subduing his own powers in other ways.
Yeah. Oh, now that you brought that up, I think that's a valid and plausible thing. I still am a little more inclined to believe that it's her, that she's just playing along con. She's letting that, and I don't think her powers are limited to it just having to be a memory. I think she could fabricate a whole thing, and in like a strong person's mind, like. So I believe that that's within her power. And why would she tell him the whole gamut? You know, like she gave him some of the guy, and I think that guy was for us. I don't think, you know, there's no reason she didn't even tell him at all. I think it's more like she told him some of it so we could have the clues and have the idea of it, or go back and go, oh, she did say, you know, something like that. Oh, and then there's one more thing as well. Another one that ends to the idea that this is, you know, that one Loki lied, but this is that Loki got tossed out of the train and then said, oh no, the temp pad must have gotten squashed when I fell out of the train. I don't know exactly how his power works, but I'm pretty sure he's putting things in like an extra dimensional space and they don't exist on his body. Because otherwise, if it existed on his body to where he could fall and it would get crushed, that just seems like ridiculous. Like, so she could just literally, you know, pat him down and find it. It's not like magically hidden somewhere else. It's magically just hidden on his. In his pants somewhere.
Like in that moment, I was like, so you had it in your pocket, not magically tucked off somewhere?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it even looks like he's pulling it out of his back pocket with like a little green flash.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's, you know, it's not in his back pocket. That's silly. It's in an extra dimensional magical space, and that's what I've always understood. Like the Tesseract isn't on his person when you know, when Thanos comes to find him and all that. It's hidden in an extra dimensional space that he makes appear.
I agree. Honestly, it's weird because I definitely had the thought that this was all some enchantment vision in Loki's head that Sylvie made at the beginning of the episode. I think that did cross my mind when I was watching it. But I don't know. I think I'd rather it be that it was all real, but the temp pad wasn't really broken. That was an illusion. Like that's where I feel like maybe the difference exists.
Yeah, I think in that moment, if he had handed over the temp pad, she would have canceled the you know, she'd be like, all right, great, I got it, kind of thing. Knowing, you know, like she was demanding the temp pad because she knew in real life she could get away with them, or, you know, like that she has time. In real life, I don't think the Vision's taking the same amount of time that it's supposed to be taking in, like, they're not traveling for 12 hours out, you know, or she's not sitting there for 12 hours in the illusion with him. It's more like 5-10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
That they're speeding along because it's, you know, in his mind. Yeah, and I
mean, all this time doesn't even run at the same time as the TVA, so
yeah, exactly. For the TVA, probably it all doesn't matter. It's all timey-wimey as far as
wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey.
Yeah, and I think it will, here's the thing, I think it'll make way more sense, even if time moves different in the TVA, the idea that they're on this planet for 12 hours would just completely destroy our plans. Like, they're going to go right back to the TVA, and it's going to be, there's not going to be a ton of guards now also protecting the door, or
unless people. It was, they come back like a second later, because, again, it's funny, the timey-wimey of it all reminded me that I listened to some review of this episode, and the people reviewing it actually did compare it to Doctor Who, which I actually do kind of get the vibe from this episode. It is a bit more Doctor Who of we are in this time in place with all these people who have no idea what's going on. And there's just these two like interdimensional time people having their fun in this, just juxtaposed in this place where no one else really is aware of them. And I've even heard some people say that Sylvie has a bit of a vibe of the most recent Doctor, the female Doctor. I haven't seen any of hers, but I haven't seen the Doctor before that either. So I haven't watched that show in a while.
I've never made it past the first season.
The first new season, or the
first new season? I'm not gonna go watch something from the 70s.
Fair.
But you know, not that anything against Doctor Who. It always seemed like a really cool show. I just didn't, you know, get into it. But yeah, I think that this is, like, my theory is the only thing that makes this all make sense. Is that if all of that ends up happening, or if it comes to, like, I think the beginning of the next episode is going to be essentially them being like, oh no, blah, blah, blah. And him, you know, and her saying, like, if only the temp pad wasn't broken, we have this power source here. And he's going to be like, well, maybe it isn't. Haha, I still had it. And it was just an illusion. And I was trying to trick you. And she's like, oh my gosh, now we'll be able to get out of here. And then it's going to reveal that she's been illusioning him the whole time. And he just pulled the temp pad out in the illusion. Because it just seems like, Chekhov's gun, right? Why would you introduce certain things in your story and they have no purpose later? Why did she even try? I guess the only reason she would try to ensorcel him is to show that he can't be ensorcelled. But I think that's it's almost like, well, then why'd she even try? Might as well just like skipped it. Like why do we have her even talking about how the illusions work?
Well, it also gives a hint off to the reveal in the episode that all of the members of the TVA are variants, which we haven't even talked about that very much. That was kind of a confirmation in a way of one of your theories that all of the members of the TVA are variants from other timelines. That was a direct confirmation of your guess. Yeah,
which means I've been right before, which means I'll be right again, and that's exactly what's happening now. But you saying that actually just brought that to mind, that potentially her showing that original, that thing right in the beginning of the episode is also to, confirm the thing about the TVA, that these people are all basically multiversal kidnapped, variants.
Because, and then the other question I have is, if it was all to get Loki to reveal where the temp pad was that whole time, then she would be able to take the temp pad from him, get it. Does she still need to get it charged outside of that fantasy? Because she still needs to get it charged, right? Or maybe it's a lot easier to charge it than going to a big power source. So we're just like that. Like, what does that get her if the temp pad still needs to be charged? And if she can get it charged without his help, then why doesn't she just immediately leave him? Because she has no reason to keep him around, unless she got fond of him, in which case, how good is her enchanting if she's able to be basically have her mind change to, I'm going to abandon this guy that's going to fuck up my plan, to, well, let me work with this guy now.
I'm assuming that it is more simple to charge the temp pad. I don't know. I can't necessarily answer all those.
I definitely really like the theory that it's an illusion. And if it's an illusion next episode, I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Part of me, though, kind of wants to see this all having actually happened to the two of them.
Yeah.
Because in a way, do you think you would like this episode more if it was revealed to be an illusion?
It seems like the only thing that will really make everything make sense to me. I feel like they are laying out I feel like clues were put there, and they're there for me to kind of figure this out. And I feel like other people should have had this idea as well.
So,
and if it's not confirmed in the next one, I will feel like all these things were just misplaced. Unless they were just trying to subvert me, oh, here's the clues that it might be, and then it's not. But that wouldn't. I feel like no. I don't feel like those clues were so obvious that it was supposed to. The fact that you may have had the thought, but you didn't really think it is. I think that's the whole purpose. Is that there's supposed to be the clues there, so you look back and go, oh, those clues. Oh yeah, it is an illusion. I get it. And if it's not that, it'll make me like this episode less. I'll just feel like this episode was
that's sort of what I was getting at. And that's kind of the vibe I got. I actually feel like if I found out this whole episode was an illusion, that would it might make the following episode better. It may have a good impact in that episode, but I think it makes this episode a lot weaker. I think it makes this episode feel like more of a waste of time. If it didn't actually happen to them and we just got a full enchantment the whole episode, and the enchantment isn't even revealed within episode, that would be more disappointing to me, because it just feels like either we're going to get another episode where a lot of the episode were spent in this illusion, or we're opening next episode with, oh, big reveal, last episode didn't really happen, let's get on to this new episode.
Well, see, I still think that the whole episode serves the purpose of not only us getting to see their differences, us getting to know them better overall, and us seeing them work together. So we get all those things actually happen as far as their minds go. Sylvie was present for those things. Loki was present for those things.
Yeah, but
Sylvie knew it was an illusion. But so the purpose narratively of what we saw there is, works. Now, okay, to say
it makes Lamentus less interesting, because it's a fake version of this place rather than experiencing the reality of the place. Like, we're not watching the fall of a moon in its own like weird, twisted, juxtaposed tragedy to what's going on, which is another quality to this episode I like. This is just an illusion of what that place is that we're experiencing, and it basically makes this place less interesting to me.
Well, I mean, I still think that, again, she knows exactly what happens here, right? She's the one that says, this is Lamentus 1. This is what happens. So she knows that, like, the reality of what occurs here.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing portrayed, whether it's an illusion, it is something that does happen.
But it's a portrayal. It's an illusion. And I fully get that it's a real thing within universe, but it just makes it makes the episode not have happened pretty much. The majority of the episode was just an illusion, and they didn't reveal it within the episode. That takes away the reveal. Should come at the end of the episode is more what I'm getting at.
I think how you mentioned that you know, like the feeling of like what's going to happen next time is a perfect way to not end it at the episode, because then we just know. We know, oh, it's an illusion, and next time they're going back to TVA. Letting you sit with the feeling that, oh my God, what is going to happen? What are they going to do? How do they get off the planet now for a whole week? And then coming back to reveal next week goes, oh my God, like you're like, oh, no, it was an illusion the whole time. You sit with the illusion. It cements itself so that the next time it comes back, you can have it all pulled out from under you. Just like WandaVision in episode 3, by the time you get to there, you're like, what is going on? And then we sit with that all week where we're like, what is happening? I don't even understand all this. And episode 4 comes out and we get, oh, all these things are explained now. Now I get all of it.
Yeah.
We have to sit with the illusion for a time before we get the reveal.
Except you just described in episode 3, where at the end of the episode, we see Monica land outside of the illusion. And so we get a tip off that it was an illusion the whole time.
I give you that. However, we also have 2 episodes where we just get weird, strange things to question.
Yeah, but that was like the whole conceit of the show going into it. So episode 3 being basically the final breakdown, the end to the setup arc of what this place is. You get the reveal, the crescendo at the end of an episode. You don't get the reveal that it was a made up fantasy thing. Like you're aware that it's all a made up fantasy, but you don't know what kind of made up fantasy it is. But you get the teaser of what it is at the end of episode 3. You don't get a teaser that this is a dream unless you count the
multiple things I would consider hints that it's an illusion.
Yes, but those are more like things that someone like you or I may notice, rather than explicitly telling your audience, hey, this we're going to develop this further next episode. Here's the teaser, guys. And I'm not saying that they have to do it like that. I'm saying that it's going to feel weak to reveal it at the beginning of the next episode rather than the end of this episode.
I would have to disagree with you. I think it's going to be more powerful. I think people like I described. Like I gave WandaVision an example, and you can use that. They gave us a teaser here, but WandaVision, you knew something was going on the whole time. There's no idea. I mean, again, we have hints that when we're watching for, but the regular viewer that's not looking for those things, it thinks all these things are happening. So when the rug is pulled out from them next week, they're going to have sat with the idea that this was what was going on the whole time, and it's going to be like, oh my God, it was an illusion the whole time. I get that feeling of like, wow, this was an illusion the whole time. A hint would just be like, oh, it's all an illusion.
See, but like sometimes it does feel like you just had the rug pulled out from under you from the previous week, rather than like it was. Sometimes having the rug pulled out from under you isn't satisfying. It's like when we ended with Agatha all along at the end of one episode, and then we come back and the Agatha all along was more like Agatha was there observing things, but it wasn't Agatha all along. In fact, this whole episode is about how Agatha doesn't know what was going on all along.
Yeah.
And is trying to figure out what it was.
Yeah. I just think in a show about Loki, who we know is a trickster, an illusionist, who, you know, like throughout the history of the MCU and what we see in him.
I'm
has
not saying
always-
it's a bad idea. I think I think there's a good chance you're right. I'm saying that it may be a bit disappointing for me personally.
Oh, well, I mean, that's acceptable. I think it's funny because you're on the opposite side. If it's not that, I'm gonna be like, well, this was just stupid. Then
That
like,
that's
I'm gonna
what
fully like think that was a bad episode.
that was sort of what I got at. Like, I feel like it would make the reveal that you want, I think would make this episode weaker. The non-reveal that I want, you think would make this episode weaker. And so it's interesting. We have a different opinion there.
Yeah.
And watch next week. It does like some weird other third option. And we're just both like, whoa.
Yeah. If it does that, cool, great. But I hope this episode will be less significant. If it's
it
not
was all under Mobius's enchantment.
Yeah.
Mobius is another Loki variant.
Yeah. That would actually be wild right there. Mobius is a Loki variant that was supposed to look up Loki variants, and that's why he knows so much about them and is trying to track them down. But he's a lesser Loki variant, so
he abandoned being Loki to invent the jet ski.
Yeah, maybe he was the guy that invented jet ski. Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, hey, that was the whole thing. The thing about this theory and all the points I had about it were everything I really want to discuss about this episode. So I don't know if you have any more to comment on.
The variant thing is cool. We didn't talk a whole ton about it, but Loki and Sylvie, Tom Hiddleston, and I don't know this actress's name, but great chemistry together, almost as good as. Honestly, it's surprising that you would take 2 episodes of pure Loki, Tom Hiddleston on Owen Wilson acting, and it's great to watch. And then you get rid of Owen Wilson, replace it with this actress that I've never seen her before. I don't think many people have. And it's still sort of like a similar level of chemistry, and it's still good to watch. Like, I don't know if it's the quality of this actress, the quality of the show, the quality of Tom Hiddleston being able to work with anybody, but like, look, like it's still interesting. Like, you can't tell me that the scenes between the two of them are not highlights this whole episode. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of what this whole episode is them talking between doing stuff.
I'm going to say one thing, again, another hot take is I feel like her performance is a little affected. Like, it seems a little like, I don't feel it's fully genuine in some moments. Like, everything that Tom Hiddleston does as Loki, I'm like, this is Loki being Loki. Like, I just feel like it's all genuine. I don't feel like I'm watching a guy play this character. I feel like it's just him. Sometimes with Lady Loki, there have been moments where I was just like, I don't know. It just doesn't land perfectly. But the chemistry is there. I think the chemistry is there. And I think that's why, in my mind, I think it's just Tom Hiddleston. I think Tom Hiddleston's great.
Are you trying to make Sylvie be like a Loki, or in your mind? Because in my mind, it's like, I just think this is me figuring out who this character is. I'm not trying to compare her to being like a Loki. I'm trying to establish her as her own independent thing, and what she's doing. I don't see it as coming across as affected in any sort of way. I just sort of see it as, I'm learning who this character is, and this character is independent of who Loki is, and that's why she identifies not as Loki.
My judgment has little to do with her, a comparison of her to Loki. It's not about, how I think she should be more like Loki. I just think it's the performance. I think her performance is in some moments feels like a person really trying to be this character who's like an aggressive, like, just, I think, again, I mentioned Tom Hiddleston because that's why he's so good as this character. Like, even, like Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. Like, that is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, that is Iron Man. Like, I do not think there's no like difference. It's not Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man. It is Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man.
Same as
Tom Hiddleston is Loki.
I feel a similar way, like Samuel L. Jackson as what's his name?
Fury.
Yeah, Fury, yeah. Agent Fury.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there are a lot of these people that, like, when I like in I think with some of the superheroes, it's because obviously they've been playing these guys for a while, and it's like, I would say maybe the first time that Scarlett Johansson came out as Black Widow, I wouldn't say that was an amazing performance as Black Widow. I wasn't like, whoa, that's Black Widow right there. But through the things, you'd be like, okay, she's become this character. This is who Black Widow is to me now. Like,
it's weird. I actually did kind of see her, and I was like, okay, this lady is cool. In Iron Man 2, I don't even think I had seen Scarlett Johansson in anything before, or if I did, it was like her as a kid.
She was in stuff, but
yeah. I didn't recognize her prior to Iron Man 2, and like her presence in that movie, I don't know, I was like, this lady's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I just sometimes Lady Loki, Sylvie doesn't quite hit it for me, but that's nothing against her. I still think it's not like she's doing a bad
Well,
job.
we'll see. She has a chance to grow on you. We're halfway through the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for me though.
Pretty much it for me. Oh, Loki's bisexual. That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, like I think I think you mentioned to me before, like that was like a big deal to a lot of people, and I guess maybe because it wasn't a bigger deal in the show, I was just like, cool, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
like that's fine with me, like
it's representation. It's Pride Month, so we love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was there.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, but we can go ahead and wrap this up, I think.
All right, excellent. Well, until next time, folks. This is Robert
And Ryan.
Have a good one.
Yep.